It could already be live. Okay.
All
All right.
right.
Okay. Now we're live. Okay, great. And yeah, so I had one idea for today, and then I remembered we were going to bring Ethan on and talk, but we could touch on the other idea. My idea for today was why you should not, under any circumstances, do the radical undoing, Reiki and breath and body work. So maybe we'll touch on that. I don't have my notebook with me with the list I made about reasons why not, but maybe we'll do a whole nother stream about that in the future. But it's basically that you have to go all in with it. You know, that's what I was thinking of, and that a lot of people are going to have trouble with that, especially if they're used to reading a million books and trying a million different systems and stuff. So they jump in, and then their brain gets conditioned to wanting instant results and sort of subconsciously knowing that they're not going to get those results because they've gone through so many systems and so many books in the past. So they've kind of conditioned themselves to think that it won't ever actually work. And then with undoing, if you get started on it, you'll have some perspective shifts that you can't go back from. You can't like unsee or unexperience certain things. And then if you don't go all the way, you're kind of stuck in some weird limbo where you're clinging to like the vestiges of your historic personality, but you also know that it's fake. So that's kind of a bizarre place to be stuck in. So at that point, then you have to keep going. And if you don't have the, say, the resources to do that or the wherewithal to push yourself to continue doing the exercises, even when it feels like you don't want to do them, when it's the worst experience, so seemingly the worst kind of experiences of your life, then that can be tough. So I like to advise people away from doing it unless they're actually really ready to commit and go deep with it, you know. So that's kind of what I was going to touch on, but we'll do something longer on that at another time.
Can
So
I just
today,
piggyback off really quick, Garrett, because I think you made
yeah, yeah,
a really good point. You said you have to keep doing it when you don't feel like it, when you don't want to. One of my Reiki and therapists I've worked with, she always says we should call this work resistance therapy, because really what it's doing is it's butting up against all the unconscious resistance to feeling feelings, and there's going to be times where you really hit all of your defenses, and people's defense mechanisms literally come up in this work. So I know we're probably going to be all over the place today, but I would love just to hear from you, just maybe a minute on that. Um, what have you experienced, or what has your experience been when you hit that resistance? Does that, I mean, that usually means you're kind of close to the pot of gold, so to speak, right? Like you found something that probably needs to be undone, and it's holding on for dear life, some kind of psycho emotional pattern. Um, can you just touch on that for a sec?
yeah. Well, one of the things that's happening when you do the exercises, and we'll do a couple of them today, like you requested on the stream, probably right after this answer. One of the things that happens is that we have a set of patterns or patterned responses to various emotional states. And when I say emotional states, I mean a physical experience in the body. So we have a patterned set of reactions to the various experiences in our life. So rather than when you're a kid, everything's new, and you know that everything's new. So everything still is new, but you learn to categorize it. So then our brain, to save energy, categorizes these and patterns reactions to various events. So then rather than being in the actual beautiful and voluminous flow of various different experiences in your life, it gets boiled down to, okay, this is dangerous, this is scary, this makes me sad, this makes me happy, whatever. So our experiences get boxed up into these categories. So then we're not actually present to what's really happening anymore. And then our brain just serves up these patterned responses to life. So in doing so, we lose touch with what's actually going on. So with the undoing exercises, why I say do those when you don't feel like doing them, because you won't feel like doing them when you're sad or upset or angry or whatever. But when you do them in those states, you're now creating a transition from whatever intense and charged state you're in back to a kind of neutral or grounded present awareness state. So by doing that over and over and over in all those different states, then you create a new patterned response, which is, oh, I experience intensity and I slide right back to neutral, observation of the intensity. So at first, you're going to do the exercises while you're feeling all tense or upset or anxious, whatever. And it sometimes feels like a relief and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just is like, what the hell am I doing? I'm sitting here doing these weird body movements, but nothing is happening. Or you feel worse, or you get more overwhelmed with thoughts and feelings. And then you just sit and do the exercises again and again and again. The full lay down sessions, why that first one that you guys have both experienced now is so important, is that it has to give you a real view of the fruits of this work. You know, you have to actually experience something that's going to motivate you to continue, to pay money, to engage me, or to whatever, to to keep going and do the exercises over and over. So you kind of get a window into where you're headed. So you lay down, you do this breathing, you become aware. Like I've said, for most people, it's a remembering. Like, oh, right, I'm just here and everything's okay, you know? And this life is electric and vibrant and amazing and beautiful and mysterious and crazy or whatever it is. And then when you go back into your life and you get lost in your mind, there's this little window of curiosity, of the youthful explorer that we all once were, and that's alive inside of us, where you're now observing yourself in the tense or in the anxious state. You see the difference? It might feel exactly the same or worse, but now you are observing it. So your identity is starting to come off of the feelings and the thoughts. And instead, someone that's watching and observing those. So when you observe, that causes things to actually change. Like if you observe tension in your body, it starts to relax itself. So that's the idea behind it all. Through doing the lay down sessions, then you're motivated to do the daily exercises, the face stretch, the shoulders, whatever. And week by week, as you do it, you'll start to look back and notice that things are missing, like reactions you used to have or anxiety that you used to have. One striking example was a guy I was working with on and off for many years, and he told me about whenever he would go to his father-in-law's house, he would end up having some argument with him, and then later fights with the wife and everything after that. And then at some point, he went to the house, and they ended up he had a great time with the father-in-law, and they had food, they did the whole thing, and nothing bad happened, and he didn't even notice that, he didn't even remember that it was a contentious experience for him, until his wife said, hey, what was that all about? What changed, you know? And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, that was great. Don't you remember? You used to have all these hard times there. And then he remembered and became aware of everything that had shifted.
We used to call that, when I was big kind of in the tapping EFT world, they called that, I think it was like the apex effect. Like people have such a massive shift in perception or something changes. They're like, oh, I never had that problem. And you're like, no, you had that, you know, for fucking 20 years. They're like, no, it wasn't a big issue at all, right? So like,
yeah,
you know, that is something I think with this work, because we're not sitting someone down and saying, well, think about the time with your mother at 7 years old and what did you believe? Like this is just working with at some level, the deepest ingrained unconscious parts of ourselves, which is this body. But things just kind of change. And at least the cool thing for me, doing this stuff over and over again, and probably for you 20 years in, is that you show up and you see how you're different. Like even showing up and doing these interviews, I mean, I don't know what your life is, Garrett and Ethan. I'm sure you'll experience this soon as the weeks go on. But I just can kind of look back and go, wow, I feel different, you know, since last week. I feel different since the week before. And it's sometimes just subtle levels of groundedness or the mask lets go another 5% or whatever it is. But it's really cool, man. It's really cool. So
I'd also be curious, Ethan, if you had any thoughts to share, about your experience with the first session, or what motivated you to get
Yeah.
in touch, and you can describe what it was like suffering with the social anxiety stuff too. I know, like, maybe it took a lot to come here, or maybe 3-4 weeks ago
Oh
you,
yeah.
you would never have thought of jumping on a stream, for example.
Hmm. Yeah, like what you said about how you sort of condition yourself to not, expect results. I'm sort of having that now because I actually tried like EFT. I tried like shadow work meditations and stuff like that, and I've been doing them for over 2 years now and didn't really get any results. So for me, like even with this, like I'm a new client and I'm just starting for people watching, but like there is some fear that like as the months go on, I'm only going to change a little bit. Like the idea of actually making a huge transformation and becoming like a completely different person, or like fully overcoming social anxiety or just anxiety in general. Like to me, it still feels like kind of impossible. Obviously, if I fully believed it was impossible to change, I wouldn't be doing this, but it's just hard to imagine. So, yeah.
And then, Jonah, I wanted you to, well, actually, let's pause
yeah.
and do a couple of the exercises together, because I think that's amazing. And then we can share if there's any direct results right away. But let's do the face stretches, and then maybe shoulders, and maybe if you guys are up to it, the tiger claw thing, because I love
Sure.
that.
Hey, can we also throw in maybe like the neck twist? Because I really like those to soften that sternocleidomastoid.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do a slow. Yeah, I used to massage that one on myself. You can't see because of the beard, but I would grab a hold right there and then push that sucker. I can still feel it now. That one used to be like a rock on me,
Yeah.
And it's naturally going to be a little tense because, of what its purpose is. But
That'll hold up your beard. So
yeah, yeah. No, I wanted to cut that. That's another one. I wanted to cut the masseter muscle and the sternocleidomastoid with the scissors. I was imagining like what kind of relief would I feel if I just chopped that thing. Now it wouldn't be relief; it would be horror. But there was the urge to want to destroy those muscles because they were so tense.
right.
And then also before we do that, I wanted to say like maybe you and or Jonah, you and Ethan, you guys could talk back and forth about the social anxiety thing, because then Jonah, you're a little further down the road, and then Ethan, you're just starting. And I thought it might be cool for people watching too to actually get direct, like if Ethan, if you share like what your experience of that is, and then that's probably a rare. I started thinking, and I didn't look around, but maybe that's kind of a rare thing for someone to candidly share what their experiences of social anxiety are, because of the nature of social anxiety.
Right.
You wouldn't,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I thought, wow, that's kind of maybe that's a rare thing. And by the way, you seem totally chill and calm. I mean,
Really? I see.
yeah.
Well, I'm actually very tense right now, to be honest. But yeah, I'm glad that I come off that way. Glad that it's not showing.
Yeah, so you at least have a good disguise,
But yeah, but
a good mask, a functional mask on it.
yeah, but I can sort of like go over it. It's like I just get very tense. Like everywhere I go, like on the subway train, in a classroom, at the gym, like at a restaurant, it's just this extreme like tension in the throat. That's like the main place. And there's like tension in the face, the stomach. And then like if something's coming up, or like I feel like something big is gonna happen, or like I enter a new place, like maybe the first 10 minutes will be filled with like extreme fear and panic. So it's a mix of just constant tension throughout the day, and like bouts of extreme anxiety and extreme, panic attacks at some times. So yeah, that's basically what it is. And like the results I've been experiencing have been like very subtle. You know what I mean? Like it's actually kind of hard to tell. But after the undoing session on Saturday, like I went out for a 2-hour long walk, and I noticed like temporarily I just felt a lot better. My shoulders were relaxed, my body was relaxed, and I had like the tightness in my throat, but it's weird. It felt like that tightness was like a little part of like a bigger thing. You know what I mean? And I didn't really identify with it as much. It's like I could sort of just ignore it. Like normally it like fully consumes me, but it felt like it was this big, like I felt like I was like this full awareness, and that tightness in the throat was just this little thing. and I could just go about my day and, do what I wanted. But, those results were temporary. Like right now it's sort of back to normal, to be honest. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fine. And are you doing this stuff every day, like the face? Or...
Oh yeah. Yeah, I
Okay,
do
cool.
this stuff multiple times a day actually. Like shoulders twice a day at least. Face stretches like 3, 4, 5 times. What else is there? Like the neck turns. I've actually been trying the gagging thing for the stomach. I've been doing that like at least twice a day. And the laughing breath. Yeah, at least twice a day too. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you'll definitely break through those barriers. I have confidence in that. And some of it was when you land on some kind of perspective, like Jonah, and then we'll do the exercises. But Jonah, you mentioned a specific perspective shift that I thought kind of related to Ethan on some
Yeah,
level, and maybe so. Why don't you share about that
sure.
in terms of rejection? It was.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I had more of my social anxiety stuff in high school. I'd say the last 10 years, I was able to kind of shift that with a lot of other things, other forms of body work. So at least coming into Radical and Doing, I mean, I'm in sales. So the whole, so you can't really be a good salesman if you know about social anxiety.
Right.
Um, but for me, I'd say the specific thing that I would still notice was it was a fear of rejection in a dating situation. But it was not at this point. It was not even like if a relationship ended. It was more of like go up to a stranger that you find attractive, talk to them, and then if they say no, and that scared the fuck out of me. Like that. That was what I really felt like was the one that was left for me. All the other ones I felt like I worked through, but that one was just because there's a lot in that, right? It's like
Yeah.
showing intent, being grounded, being judged. There was a lot in that. So that one actually shifted, I don't know, probably 3 weeks to a month ago. And it took a little bit of like conscious, deliberate effort, and then it also took having to sit through a bunch of feelings. Um, what I will say is we can kind of get trapped in this work of like, well, if I just do the work and never take action in life, this is something that I kind of had to work through. It'll change. But what I started realizing was I had to start taking these conscious, deliberate action steps to bring up the triggers and then work through the triggers. But the thing that completely shifted for me, and I texted Garrett right after, it was really fucking cool. I had spent about 3 weeks just finding women that I found beautiful, just in coffee shops out in public and talking to them. And then it would bring up massive amounts of anxiety. So there was this girl on a street corner, and we started talking, and we talked for like 2 or 3 minutes, and it was amazing to see the progression of like as the mask would fall and as I just became more grounded. Just it was like hanging out with the two of you. So I asked her out, and she said I have a boyfriend. What's interesting is, and Garrett says this too, it's like as you open up your face and your eyes, you really see. And I saw her extremely nervous. I didn't think a lot of guys ever
Right.
talk to her, which I never saw that perspective before.
Yeah.
And then when she had said I had a boyfriend, I could tell that wasn't real. It was more of a defense mechanism. And then what hit was, oh shit, like that's it? Like it was like the whole idea of rejection completely just, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't like I have to shift my beliefs and be like, well, I'm rejected and that doesn't mean what it used to mean, or I had to like, it wasn't any psychobabble. It was literally just a complete shift of there's no such thing as rejection. And that completely changed my life because now I feel like in that one specific situation, I've had plenty of people say yes and plenty of people say no. And it's funny because it doesn't really matter. Like the yeses are great and the nos are great. And yeah, every now and then, of course, there's a little feeling in the chest or a little energy, which I don't even know if I call that anxiety or excitement. But it was a complete paradigm shift. And all it took was consistency with these exercises, and then challenging myself to take these 1%, you know, steps towards what made me uncomfortable, and it brought up the feelings, and then I had to process it. But um, that was really cool, and I think that's what healing is. Is it's like the insight or the reframe has to come from us, and it has to come from our body, and then when we get it, like it's done. It's not like you got to go back 20 years later and revisit it. It's like when it's done, it's completely done. So, yeah.
You have any questions around that, Ethan?
Honestly, I get a bit nervous when you talk about like processing emotions, because that's what I've been trying to do the last 2 years with like EFT, meditation, shadow work, and it just hasn't been working. So I wonder what you mean by that. What do you mean by processing emotions? Like, how do you do that?
Right.
So before you answer, I had an idea to do. Let's just do an actual experience of this exact thing, and people watching, if you're watching and following along, do it with us. You know, have the experience right now. You're not really going to find this scrolling around very often. Maybe you would, but it's usually stuff about the experience. And this is a great question you asked there, Ethan, because yeah, we can. I bring this up all the time. There's this world of ideas and words and abstractions, and most people are trapped in there. And all the seeking and all the healing, all the therapy they go for, stays locked in that world of ideas. And then if nobody describes a way out of that, or has it grounded into direct physical experience, or asks a question like you asked now, it stays there, and then people kind of have an unspoken agreement to pretend that it's all working. You know, so if you go to meditation retreats or whatever, people will all no one will really question it. If they're like, this is not fucking doing it for me, no one will say that. There's social pressure against that, you know, and everyone will act as if it's so amazing, even if it's not. Then everyone else will kind of go along with that and like, yeah, that is amazing, it's fine, you know, and even though they're not really getting deep with it. So it's a great question, and what I want to do is we'll do something, what I call silent presence, just briefly at the beginning, then we'll do the exercises, then we'll do that again at the end, and you'll see if you notice any difference. And then Ethan, this is something you can do something that I think will go a long way to this experience of actually so-called processing the emotions, or feeling life fully, but not being afflicted by the intensity of it.
All right.
And so I call it silent presence. And I'll send you another recording where you can do it for yourself as well. But you start the day and end the day with this, and it's gonna be a great boon to you in a lot of different situations. So we'll try it out now, and then we can discuss a little bit at the end. So first thing is just to sit back and relax and close your eyes, and I'll do it along with you guys as I speak. And so you just sit back, relax, close your eyes, and then become aware. And when I say become aware, there's no effort in this. You just allow it to happen. Become aware of your hands. So it's just kind of like being aware of the inside of your hands. So no effort, and if there's thoughts, just notice them, but don't do anything about them. Just become aware of your hands. And then become aware of your feet. And again, no struggle. If you just have the idea of the feet, okay, fine. But just feel your feet. And then become aware of your hands and feet at the same time. Again, if the thoughts are like, I don't get this, fine, you know, observe the thoughts, but just notice that you have hands and feet. Then notice you have arms and hands at the same time. So arms, just notice the inside of your arms and your hands. And you just let that awareness happen. And then notice that you have legs and feet, so become aware of the legs and feet. And then all together, arms, hands, legs, and feet all at once. Just an awareness that you have those things. feel them. Okay, now notice the top of your head. So become aware of the top of your head. And then let that awareness move through your eyes. Let the muscles around your eyes relax. Just notice your eyes relaxing there in the sockets. And let the mouth and the tongue and the jaw just hang loose and relax. Just leave your face alone, and let that awareness move down through your neck, through your shoulders, all the way to the tips of your fingers, down through your chest and belly, into the hips and pelvis, down through the legs to the tip of your toes. So now just be aware of the whole body. Nothing specific. Just be there inside of the body. And anything that's going on is totally fine. It could be super intense, could be trembling, could be buzzing, could be nothing. Could be filled with a bunch of thoughts and reactions. Just notice all of those things. Just sit there and notice them. No trying to change, no conversation with the thoughts. Even if the thoughts say, oh, this isn't working, this is weird, what am I doing? Just notice those too. Okay, and now notice your breathing. Deep down there in the belly. And at the same time, notice the sounds or the silence. Notice the sounds going on around you now. Sounds are great at all times, no matter what they are, because they're happening right now. They're happening in the present. So notice the sounds, notice the breathing, and then become aware again of your forehead and notice where thoughts kind of come and go. And just observe the thoughts. And later I might ask you what was the first thought that jumped in. But don't hold on to anything. And if you get lost in thought, now just notice that. That's also great. Because now you're noticing. So you're observing it rather than being completely lost. And you'll become aware at some point that all those voices in your head are not you. And that the feelings in the body are not you. You're the one observing those things. So now I'll be quiet just for a few moments. And we can all sit together, and anyone watching this live or later on the video, live in your life, follow along and just observe and notice. We'll go a little bit longer. Just let your hands relax. Just staying aware and observing. Okay, now you can just very slowly, you can like rub your hands together and then put them over your face and over your eyes, and then open your eyes and kind of come back. So that's something you can do, on your own. Like I said, Ethan, I'll send you a recording I made for that. I made a few different ones, different amounts of time. But once you kind of get it, you'll be able to do it on your own. It's not something that's new. Like there's, Jesse Lee Peterson calls it silent prayer. I had arrived at it prior to knowing Jesse's thing and talking to him. And I called it fake meditation for years before. So it's, to me, and then I've found other people that came up with something similar. And what occurs to me is that if you do stuff like the undoing body work and you are honest with yourself and looking into things like meditation and all this, that you will arrive at that it's like something that we all have, this inbuilt capacity for this observation and this presence, so that if you're going down that road and being honest, by down that road I mean seeking and attempting to understand yourself and your life, you would naturally arrive at that. So at first I was blown away. Wow, like Jesse Lee is saying the same thing I was trying to say with fake meditation. And then I realized, oh, okay, this is something that's, has some historic precedent, and that if you sit with yourself long enough, you will arrive at this fact that you're the observer, that you are not the thoughts, you're not the feelings, of course, because you're the one observing those. But we kind of forget that we are the observer. Does that make sense to some degree? If it doesn't, say so. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it kind of makes sense. I don't fully know what you mean by the observer. Like, do you mean like soul or something, or like, I'm not sure what that means.
That's a good word, soul, although it opens the door to a lot of people's misinterpretations. But so like a watcher. So when you're seeing the thought, my hand always goes back here because it's almost like you're standing up back here watching your life take place. So even if just for a moment in there, like if I say, okay, become aware of your hands, like right now, then you'll know like you're the one observing the hands, but you're not the hands. Or if you're feeling, so some people will come and say, oh, I'm feeling tons of anxiety. Okay, and I always say, okay, but what, like, don't use that word anymore. Tell me what you're actually experiencing in your body. And then the person will have to sit for a second and be like, huh. So then some people will say, okay, I feel some tension in my throat, or my hands are cold, or my legs are trembling, or whatever it is. Then we have something we can actually look at and do some exercises around. So you're the one observing the thoughts, for example. So like an extreme example would be like suicidal thoughts. If you can remember that, like, you wouldn't do that to yourself. No one would do that to themselves. Would sit and invent a chain of thoughts that leads to that kind of conclusion, for example. Right? So if you kind of use logic and reason, like, if you're spending money, you're doing an effort to start to feel better, to flow with life, right? So you have your own best interest in mind. But then those thoughts that maybe are keeping you afraid, or that lead a person, again, the extreme example, to want to kill themselves, you can know those are not something that you're doing. See what I mean? You're not just, you don't have a memory of inventing thoughts that scare you, right? They just arise. And if they don't have your best interests in mind at all. So knowing that, then when you notice those thoughts, you can even say something like, hey, I see what you're doing. I personally like the Christian terminology, like what Jesse Lee says, or Derek Prince, or various others, where they say, they refer to that as demons, or the work of the devil, or something like that. I like those terms, even though psychology has kind of distanced us from those. I think it does a disservice to try and make it seem all just psychological, which they haven't figured everything out. If they have, then people would be getting amazing results consistently all the time with all those modalities. But so we know then the thoughts aren't invented by us. And if they don't have our best interests in mind, then why should we be listening to those? How much impact should they really have? You know what I mean? So when I say the observer, then you can notice any time that you get into any sort of intense feeling state, or noticing thoughts that are like, oh my God, I'm terrified of this, or I can't talk to this person, or I don't want to, whatever. You can notice like, oh, you're not inventing those thoughts because you're actually trying to get out of that trap, right? Mm-hmm. So now you'll know those, now hopefully from now going forward, and we'll check in about this, week after week, but now going forward, maybe you'll notice, oh, these aren't mine, they're not in my best interest. And you can even then say something to yourself, hey, I see what's going on here, I'm not going into that.
Can I add something really quick?
Yeah, please do.
I think in the beginning, when we're so contracted and there's so much stuff that kind of hasn't opened, it's like the thoughts or the emotions come and we're like this because there's no separation. And at least in my experience, and I mean, and Garrett, I'm sure for you as well, it's like the reason why we open the body, in some ways that creates space for us to recognize the silence or the observer. And then the stuff comes up, but there's a witnessing of it, and there is a gap. It's a very subtle gap, but there's a gap. Because in the beginning, it's just all unconscious, autonomic. It's the same responses from childhood. They're the same responses as growing up, and we identify with those, and that's us. And then over time, this separate sense of, okay, there's something coming up, and I'm looking at that, and it may feel horrible, but I'm aware that I'm feeling horrible as opposed to just lost in it. So as you do this work, and as things start to fall, you start to have a greater sense of objectivity, and you don't identify as much with what comes up, and then just kind of a lot of it falls away, or a lot of it, as Garrett has pointed me back to 100 times, feel it and stop saying this is what it means and this is what it connects to. Just feel the sensation of it, and then you really look at it. You go, oh, okay, I'm feeling a sensation. It doesn't have to mean that, whatever happened at 7 or something, 25 years ago. It's just a sensation. That's just my experience. Would you agree, Garrett, that opening up your body has allowed you to create space, and that sense of observation has...
Yeah, and rejecting then all the categories and all the reasons and all the, like I wrote an email or a post recently that was like, never make a study of potholes unless you're a city engineer or a road builder, meaning you want to get from here to there, whatever that is. You don't necessarily need to, so for you, Ethan, you don't necessarily need to make a study of everything that's ever been said about social anxiety, for example. You don't need to necessarily understand where it comes from, how it got there, why it got there. You just need to be able to move past it, And so I think a lot of the resources around these things are just studies of the issue. And then medication and stuff like that, which, can be a temporary Band-Aid on it, but then as you might know, it doesn't really... let's say, get you more fully into life, and then overcoming those experiences. So, and I'm not judging anybody who goes that route, because the society and the people we go to for help are kind of set up in that direction, to lead you down to that road. But you might find, and some people have found with the undoing, that then they naturally kind of feel the need for those things drop off, through doing the undoing and through doing the awareness, this silent presence kind of thing. So one of the keys to that, doing that every day, doing that when you wake up in the morning, is it might seem overwhelming, to just sit there, but you're there, you're alone in a room, you can check around, everything's safe, lock the door if you want, that kind of stuff. But it's going to get easier and easier and easier and easier and easier over time. Pretty quickly, probably. And then throughout the rest of the day, you will, because you'll have that thread from the morning and then at night before bed of awareness, and then you'll start to notice throughout the day when you're not aware. So if you're scared of something and there's actually no physical threat present, you know what I mean? No one's trying to hurt you or anything. Then it means that you're not aware. You're in somewhere in an idea. But then you'll notice that you're not aware. And instead of getting into the thoughts about not being aware, okay, that's the trap. The thoughts are going to go, "Oh, you idiot! You're not aware again. Look at you." You know, they can say all kinds of stuff. You know, "Oh, where have you been?" In my head, it might be, "Oh, Garrett, what kind of asshole are you? You've been doing this undoing for years. You teach it to other people. How could you not be aware?" You know what I mean? It's not like the voices are going to give up. They come up with all kinds of new tricks, you know, but it's always the same. They have no power over you, but they're going to try to convince you that to stay locked to listening to them, you know, stay locked into the head. And then when you notice, it's kind of comical. It's like, so throughout the day, if you drift off or something, or you're just not, your mind is not in the same place as your body, you know, you're not aware, then you can just notice that and then become aware. And it's almost like a little celebration. So you turn the tables on the situation. So rather than it being like, "Oh man, I lost awareness like 200 times today," or "I was gone all day," instead it's like, there it is. I'm aware again. I'm here now. So even in the middle of a phone conversation, in the middle of this stream right now, you might catch yourself drifting off, coming back, drifting off, coming back. Each of those is another little point of awareness, of light shining onto the situation. Each one is this opportunity. You come back, and now you can remember your hands again, or something like this, and just be here. And so for a moment, then you're here again, right? Is that happening for you during the course of the discussion at all?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me. I don't have much experience with this, like observing or whatever, so it's hard for me to tell.
Yeah, that's okay. And I appreciate your honesty too. See, like,
yeah.
In my book, the fact you're here right now and then that we're sharing in the discussion is already like a massive win, you know? There's even folks I've worked with who would never come on to a stream like this. There's people I know that I'm friends with who would never jump on a stream, you know? So I'm actually impressed that you jumped on anyway.
Hey, Garrett, why don't we do this if you're cool? I am a little short on time, but
yeah,
maybe for Ethan, I got 10 more minutes, but why don't we do a couple exercises?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. And then we'll do the presence thing again.
And then Ethan, the cool thing is this is obviously a big trigger for you. I think you're doing great, man. Like,
thank you.
It's really scary, and I don't think people realize, like, this for you is like a huge thing, and I just want to acknowledge that. And being able to do the exercises in the midst of the trigger in some ways may give you a huge breakthrough, because you've taken, kind of like I said before, you took a little action, but this is like a huge action. And now let's play with undoing some of these patterns, and then you get to, you know, see what happens. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so we'll just do the face stretches. And again, the keys to that, moving everything, all the different muscles of the face. And just so everyone's aware, I still feel totally fucking weird every time I do it, but that's kind of the point, is to get the identity off of all these various states. So you just twist and move everything. Keys to this: add lots of intensity in the contractions. Move slower than you normally would, deliberately, and then breathe the whole time. And I'll keep reminding us to breathe. And again, people watching, you know, go ahead and follow along with us.
This has been one of my absolute favorite exercises. And over time, Ethan, you'll really notice that the mask that you bring starts to just fall away.
And just keep on breathing. Let all the breath out on the exhale. So I noticed right there, I was tensing my fingers. I was holding my hands together and tensing my fingers. And then as I noticed it, it just drops away.
So, Ethan, one of the things for me, I used to notice I had a kind of a fake smile.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was all about trying to get love, acceptance, approval. And doing this, it took a couple months, about 2 months, and it just started to fall away. I was like, I don't have to fucking be anything. But it was because I held so much in my face.
Yawns take precedence. Ugh, if you have to yawn, just make sounds. And
This one's also good to do while you're driving. I do this a lot.
and I learned from some when I was younger, some people that were into psychedelics and that kind of stuff, and they had introduced me to it. And I'm not advocating or going against those here. I'm just observing something that I experienced, and just keep doing the face stretch. And it was at this line he told me to remember. The people on the outside don't know what's going on the inside. And, the people, in terms of social anxiety, like Jonah kind of hinted at, everybody has this shit going on. Everybody's trying to uphold some fake idea of a reputation. They're all kind of terrified. And even like you mentioned, the people have some massive fantasy about good-looking people, beautiful women, especially that they're just these flowing, graceful princesses that have no suffering in their minds,
Mm-hmm.
But they, in some sense, are more locked down than some of the rest of us ugly folks. No, in that, like, sometimes no one will approach them because they're all afraid, and they have this whole fantasy built up around them, so they never get treated as who they really are. They're not really seen or heard.
That is something I do want to just talk about for a sec. My experience has been as I've opened up my face and as I've opened up my eyes, I start to see people. Like, you really see people. And you can see them for who they are. You can look at someone and say, wow, your heart's coming through. Or I can see the pain in your eyes. But it's only until you face your own pain and start to accept your own pain or your own joy and you let your mask down, I think that you can really see in other people. You see them for who they really are, not what they're showing the world. Because it's all not everybody, but I'd say for a lot of people, it is a facade or a mask.
And yeah, there's this frail human, this personhood inside each of us. You can see beyond the politics and even the looks and all this, and there's this spark of life in everybody. With the face stretches, you'll start to notice it, and people will notice it in you as well. For me, it happened strangely with animals and kids. Animals and kids, when I was in public, would come walking up or kind of surround me and other guys when we were doing the undoing a lot. We weren't doing the undoing in public, but
right
during that time. Okay, so let's keep going with the face and then pull the shoulders up to your ears at the same time. And then one thing that's happening right now, Ethan, during this entire call, is that you've been persisting, we've been engaging and communicating, and now your brain, your body, your observer is gathering data that nothing bad has happened to you so far. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
See, so now it's adding up. It's creating new, and then because these exercises we're doing with the breathing now, it's opening you up even more to that awareness. So now this is something new, right? There's no meaning. It's new data. The brain has to account for this.
Right.
It's not a fluke that nothing's happening. There's no, that there's nothing bad happening. No threat. We all have a nice connection and nice rapport and everything. And there's just so that's going to accumulate over time.
And there's something cool, I'm sure, about being met, because sometimes, at least for me, the whole idea of you let the feelings out or you express how you're feeling and you're not shamed and you're just accepted. It's like then you can learn, oh, I don't have to shut this down. I'm not going to be abandoned or rejected. That's what I like. Are you part of the Sunday group at all, Ethan? Are you going to join us?
I will. I'm doing 1 month of one-on-one, and then I'm thinking about going to the group calls.
Yeah, that was great. That's been great for me because I never did stuff with a group. So
Right.
I love after you get to your one-on-ones, I love having the group and having everybody there because you get to. We're all just, I think, learning to show parts of ourselves that we never let come up.
Right.
It's like the real us, not the us that we think we need to be to get love, acceptance, approval. That's not us.
What is it like? Is it like you do the lay down sessions and then talk, or?
We do the warm ups and the lay down, like you understand, and then sometimes there'll be a topic that's comes up among the group, or at the end I'll have something that I want to share, and then we'll stay on for a while later, whoever wants to. All right, and then take a full inhalation. So we've done it for quite a while here, which is great. Make a crazy face, like whatever, all tense and crazed. And then 3, 2, 1. Thrust him down. Good. Nice one, Ethan, too. Man. You thrust him down. Yeah, isn't that fucking great?
Yeah, it feels nice.
Every time, man. I don't know how many times I've done it. Every time, and I love it. And then with the face, right? So now you can feel the face is kind of mobilized, and at least I feel a lot of, let's say, life there. And then my neck and shoulders too, and then across the chest. So it's
that one's fucking amazing on the 1,000th time, on the 1,000,000th time.
Yeah.
It's like a whole new experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I always experience relief from that. Like, for me, sometimes I question if I'm doing the face stretches right because it doesn't always feel looser after, but like the shoulder one, it's always a relief. So.
Yeah. And with the face, there's so many different ways you can kind of go about it. Like you can hold one face. You could just hold one really tight. There's exercises in the intensives. One is called emotional face, and that's where you set up your phone and record yourself making the face of every possible emotion you can imagine. And you do that over the course of a half an hour, and then you watch the video back later. So that has its own feedback loop. I won't go depth about that, but doing that in the mirror and then looking at it and stuff also has this. Well, let's try it out. I'm not going to explain that one, but we can discuss it more on.
Can you stretch like?
Guys, I have to run. I'm going to let you guys finish up.
Sure.
Garrett will be in touch. Ethan, welcome to the Radical and Doing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was nice meeting you.
This was great. So.
Yeah, good to see you, man. And I love the beard as it's evolving.
Yeah. It's its own identity now, right? It's its own thing. Let's hop on, Garrett, next week, and welcome.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
See you, man. Okay, so let's just do. Well, let's do one more exercise. I was going to say no, but let's do the that tiger claw one. Did I show that to you already?
Yeah, we did that on the last session. Yeah. I just had one more question about the face.
Yeah,
Sorry,
sure.
I just had. It was like, can you just stretch one part of the face at a time? Like just stretch the eyes and the eyebrows and like lift them up, and then stretch the bottom of your face and the jaw like separately, or do you have to be moving the whole
Yeah.
face the whole time?
I I think it's over time. It's fun to experiment in all different kinds of ways. The
Oh,
key
all right.
again being that you use a lot of intensity, and that you breathe throughout, and that you move slowly and deliberately.
Right.
So, yeah, I had times where I was just exploring the forehead forever, and just moving one eyebrow and trying to kind of like move that
I have some
around,
trouble with that.
all that. Yeah, just sit and mess around, and then I'd sit with the eyes like all different directions, and then remember to breathe over and over, and
Right.
and kind of that choppy process of forgetting and remembering is really a core part of what this work is, and maybe one of the reasons people struggle with it, or that it's difficult to maintain over time, is because people are used to like more of a, they've been conditioned the way school kind of teaches people.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? But that's not really, that doesn't have much place in this, that level of self-judgment. It's more like, okay, oh, I was moving a little fast. All right. And you slow down and keep moving. And you might notice things like, suddenly I noticed I never stretched this lip down or this lower lip up. I never had gone like that and really felt it. And I was like, whoa, that was tense. And then suddenly the bottom lip, like, I'm trying to move the jaw different ways, or I started trying to move the tongue the opposite way of the jaw, which was
Oh
hard
yeah,
for a
it's
lot of
hard.
people.
Yeah, I tried that.
Like, they kind of have to lock one in place, yeah. So then it kind of becomes fun. It's like this whole exploration. So it's whatever, can get you to do it. And then you just make sure you're breathing. And then over time, it'll get easier, more smooth. Just remember to breathe. And then, of course, since we're moving around the face and all these different muscles, then throughout the day, you're going to remember the face exercise. And you'll notice when you have tension. And the tension won't be as intense as it was previously. Although the fact that you're noticing it might make it seem more tense, right?
Right. Right.
So there's a little bit of, that's what I mean. It's kind of like a graph that's going like, let's say going down like this, but then more tense and a little less tense, a little more, a little less, but it is gradually getting less over time. So that's why it's like important to do the exercises whenever you're in any kind of intense mood, and just continue with them over time, and then make a little celebration of any successes that you have. Like even just now, you felt relief when you did the shoulders.
Yep.
Take a moment and enjoy the relief, So let's do the tiger claw one, and then we'll do the silent presence again, and then discuss a little bit.
All right.
And again, it's awesome that we're on here, and hopefully anybody watching, if you guys leave comments or questions from myself or Ethan, hopefully people can get inspired to try out the face, the shoulders, and all this, and take some steps to overcome that social anxiety thing. One thing that will allow you to do it too is that you can then share your gifts, whatever those are. Now I'm basically a Christian, so I believe that we were created as unique individuals with inherent gifts to share with each other, with the world, that make it, I don't want to say a better place, but make it a beautiful experience, that we have some purpose for existing at all. And part of that purpose is to share the gifts that we have. So that might be singing, it might be playing, it might be just sharing conversations with strangers, it might be whatever that is for you. And through getting over these tensions and becoming aware, then those gifts will start to naturally flow, and you'll find out more what you're into. And for example, one thing maybe this is useful for you. I enjoy dancing, and I've taken a lot of dance classes somewhat recently. But I think I was terrified of dancing. I don't know when that started or why that happened. And then it got hidden underneath. I would get like kind of angry, but I would hide the anger from other people. And then when the situation would come up where they're like, hey, we're going to go dancing, or we're going to go to this concert and dance, I'd be like, I just don't like that band. I wouldn't even address the dancing thing, right? I had like a layer on top of it. I was like, no, I don't like that. And then I'd get kind of like weird and judgy about it, you know. I would get like, oh, you guys always want to go to that stupid club, you know, whatever. But then inside, part of me was like, oh man, I'd love to go and feel okay with going, you know, and actually moving around. So somehow that started to kind of undo, and I noticed, like, I don't really believe this. I wouldn't, if I really didn't want to go, I wouldn't have that excuse layer built up over it. You know what I mean?
Right.
If I really wasn't into it, then it would be like, no, you guys have fun. But it was like, somehow this whole reaction, this whole story, you know?
Yeah. As a kid, I think I have that with art, to be honest. Because as a kid, I would draw, you know, for hours and hours every day. And like, you know, people always thought that my art was like very good. I had a talent for it. That's what people always said. Like my grandfather, you know, even till the day he died, he'd like call me, say, hey, like you should get back into art. But I remember when I was like 6, 7 years old, for some reason, this like self-hate sort of thought pattern came in where like whenever I made a little mistake on the art, I would rip it up and then I'd be in like extreme pain. I'd be crying and stuff, you know, when I rip it up, and it just broke it for me. You know, I stopped art around like 6 or 7 years old. Just because it was too painful. You know, I kept ripping up my own art. I kept beating myself up. So I think for me, it's with art. And this whole time I've had like sort of this excuse in my head. I just don't like art. Like art is stupid, blah, blah, blah. But I think I actually do like it. You know, just it's suppressed, you know. So, yeah, I want to get back into that.
Thanks for bringing that. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I'm glad. Sorry, there was a little delay. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
I'm glad you brought that up. We'll discuss that on tomorrow. On the session, but I have something I called the NGF drawing method, and a lot of people have used it to get over the inner critic pretty quickly. So I'll let you know what that is tomorrow, and then give you kind of an assignment you can do every day. So I'll be doing a drawing every day.
Nice.
In this specific way, and then also just for anyone listening too, there's also this cool app. I've got a bunch of courses that I bought on. Called Domestika. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it has like one I really liked is surrealistic fine liner drawing or something like that. So you use fine liner markers of different sizes, and then the courses are all step by step. I mean, I don't get anything. Maybe I should become an affiliate, but that helped me a lot go into different things like watercolor painting and fine liner drawings and different stuff. Not so much that I had anxiety around it, but I had like a lack of kind of creativity, and then I would get frustrated because I'd draw the same stuff over and over, and then I would just like, I wouldn't try. But then with that, it kind of opened the door to going deep with something. But first step is just like recovering where you left off, where you were doing your drawings, you know, as a kid. And one thing I'll mention, an art teacher I had, EJ Gold, he said when you're doing any drawing or painting or music, whatever, the moment you make a mistake, underline the mistake. Like literally draw a line under the mistake, like highlight it and then continue. So you could try that as well. So the moment that your mind is telling you, oh, there's a mistake, be like, aha, that's where the art actually begins, you know, rather than your idea of what you're doing, you see? Mm-hmm. Because for there to be a mistake, you have to have an idea of how it's supposed to go, right?
Yeah.
So you have in your head, but then once something else happens that you're not expecting, now like something else is going on, right? You're like the muses or whatever it is, like the inspiration maybe has struck, and now you can start to work with it, set it free. So that helped me when he mentioned that. And everybody laughed when he said it. And he's like, oh, you guys think I'm joking. You think I'm joking? No. Right there, draw a big line of paint right under the thing. And then continue. All right, so let's do the tiger claws. And then I'll do the silent presence and then get out of here. Went way over the time I expected, but that's fine. So I'll explain this for people. You know it by now, but the keys here is you don't want to just lean the head back. You want to kind of arch the whole spine. So my head's coming up and back with my chest. And then the hands are coming back, and the palms are and thumbs are reaching back, and fingers reaching back. From the sides it looks like this. So it's not like that. It's like coming up and back. And you make a crazy psychopath smile on the inhale, coming back. And then when you come forward, you tense and contract all the muscles in the chest and arms to the point where they're like shaking, and you move through the contraction all the way forward like this till they come down like that. Squeeze like you're tearing through some kind of wall or some kind of meat or something. And you do a growl on that part. So in the inhale, so let's do it together. And this one is crazy. You know, I feel like ridiculous when I introduce this to people, but I love the results. So on the inhale, you come back, crazy smile, and then you inhale, come back again. I'll do 3 of these. And then one more. That one opens up my wrists and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then take a couple breaths. Gets all warm too, yeah?
Yeah, it does. Feels good.
Yeah. And I learned a part of that one from Matt Fury, but I added the psycho smile and the growling part, you know. But the other part I learned from him as part of like
right.
helping to heal the wrists. Okay, so now let's just do that thing again, the silent presence. And just close your eyes and sit back, relax. You can have the hands anywhere that feels comfortable. And then just become aware of the hands. Just notice them. And become aware of the feet. And the arms and hands at the same time. The legs and feet at the same time. And now arms and hands and legs and feet all at once. Just become aware. The top of the head, and let that awareness just kind of flow down through the face so the eyes relax, back in the sockets, jaw and tongue and mouth just hang loose. And down through the neck and chest and belly. And hips and pelvis. So all the way down to the tips of the fingers, tips of the toes. And now become aware just of the whole body as one thing. Notice the breathing. Let the face relax. Even if you have to let it relax over and over, it's fine. And notice the sounds around you. Or the silence. Just being aware of it. And there's no such thing as a distraction because you're just observing even the distractions. And then notice like you're watching a movie or a screen or a video. Just notice the thoughts. For example, I had a thought about the exercises we were going to do before when we did this. And I had the thought of the time when Jonah had to leave. But you just notice them. Don't have a conversation with them. So let go of everything. Let go of yesterday. Let go of tomorrow. And just be aware. So notice thoughts about tomorrow. Notice thoughts about yesterday. But let everything go. You're whole. You are a whole person. And if you start to tremble, if you get overwhelmed or it feels intense, just notice that. If there's nothing going on, just notice that. If you get lost, just remember the hands or the feet. Or let the cheeks relax or the jaw hang loose. And the breath. Just relax completely, just melting into the chair. And then notice any thoughts. And maybe there won't be any thoughts. But either way, just observe. Now I'll be quiet for a moment or two. We can just breathe and be aware. Again, notice the hands. And just observe. Okay, and then take a deep, deep inhale. Again, real slowly rub the hands together. Put them in front of the face, front of the eyes. Kind of rub the forehead if you want, the eyes. And then come back out of it. So what's that like for you?
Man, yeah, it's a weird experience because like I'm aware of all the thoughts and like they're telling me things like I'm not doing this right, like are you doing this right? It's a lot of worrying, a lot of like complaining, like oh this isn't gonna work, this is stupid, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which I don't think that. It's just the thoughts are thinking that, you know.
No, that's it's great when you say them out loud, right? Notice you laughed a little bit when you said them out loud, but when they're inside, like say before this call or whatever, or before you started, doing some work to overcome this, then they're like real and huge, right? And they're
right.
At least as far as I can remember, like when the thoughts are trapped inside, it's like, oh my God, they're so horrible. Like, am I doing? It's just
yeah.
But as you say them, then you even qualified and said, oh hey, I don't really think this. So now that's a live demonstration of that, the difference between you, the observer, versus the thoughts. You're like, I don't even think that. That's exactly what we were talking about, yeah?
Yeah. And there was a couple of other things, like, I think I was actually thinking about what am I going to say? Like, how am I, because, like, during the meditation, I was thinking, like, how am I going to describe this experience after the meditation's over? Like, how am I going to say this to Oh, my God.
It's always running around, like, trying to anticipate everything and, like, analyzing and what,
Yeah. And then the third thing is like I had tightness in my throat, and a part of my mind was trying to figure out how can I get rid of that, because that's something I experience whenever it comes up, because like it's hard. Like I realize the feeling itself is not that painful, like in itself, but I think it affects the way that I act. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to stutter over my words if my throat is tight. I'm going to sound very nervous. I'm going to be all tense. People are going to see. So that really causes me to like resist it and try to get rid of it. So a lot of those thoughts were coming up about how bad it is, the feeling, and how like I need to figure out how to get rid of it,
Right. And see, those thoughts want to believe that they're in charge.
Yeah.
So then they're trying to take hold again. Oh, we need to get rid of this. But it's the awareness, and then of course the exercises. But it's the awareness itself that's going to start to cause that to diminish.
Right.
And then those really slow neck turns, and those are like when you do them on your own, you just can go like really this slow. You almost don't see it happening.
Yeah.
And I used to get angry when I would do this in the beginning. I would get all mad. I'd be like here and like, ugh, ugh. And then I would stop sometimes, But after a while, then it passed.
Yeah. For me, it takes about 2.5 minutes to go one side all the way to the other. Like, is that too fast? Or I usually just play a song, and then by the time it's over, I'm done.
We'll say that's the slow neck turns, and then I used to say then there's ultra slow neck turns, which you could spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes if you want,
Right.
You don't have to do it that slow. I think the tendency most people have would be to be like this, which is way too fast.
Yeah.
But something where it's like almost imperceptible. And then there's other ones, we'll get into this on the session tomorrow, but there's some things like just setting a timer for 3-4 minutes and just making tones or sounds, like da, 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 and like fucking around, da, 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 blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
Or you can get more like into it, and there's some apps, I can't remember, I think there's one called Pitch, where you'll see how hard it is to hold one single pitch, like a singer does. And then you can practice it with the app where you just sit in. So any singing exercises, if you look on YouTube, like warm-up exercises for singers, for male singers or something, and then do those are designed to open that up, so the energy and life force and blood and whatever flows through the neck more smoothly.
Right.
So those are little tricks you can do as well. But the main thing, you're aware of it. Let that awareness be enough and know that you're working on it. For example, every single breath that you do is an exercise that's working on that area.
Oh, yeah.
You're saying the And at first, for some people, not talking about you specifically, but for some folks, it'll be like, oh. You hear all that breath coming out. And then after a while, maybe 30, 40 minutes or a few sessions, then after a while, it's like, oh.
Right.
But it's not because I say over and over, hey, come on, what are you making all those sounds for? I just say, just make a gentle sound. And people might, for the first few sessions, be like, oh. And I'll just say once every 10 minutes or something, okay, just gentle sound. Next session, I might start them off and say, okay, just say right after me, And they'll say, Okay, that's how you do it with the breath. They go into it, then it's the other way again. But over time, it kind of tends toward relaxation with just a little bit of a nudge. So I remember, like I said, I had that tension in my jaw and in this muscle that comes down from here to the collarbone. And it would be freaking rigid. It would be so hard, and I'd feel it, and like, oh my God, I felt like it was going to tear off the bone, separate from the bone. And then over time, that got better. That got smoother, mainly with those slow neck turns, but also just awareness over time,
Right.
And I used to get upset about my ribs are kind of like, they're kind of bowed out a little bit, because I had an experience when I was little that made me feel like, I have to show the world I can be okay. I'll be okay. I can handle it, but I couldn't handle it then, couldn't handle that intensity as a kid. So my body built itself in a way that was trying to project that I can handle it. Then when I became aware of the rib cage that was like that, then I was trying like to hold it down and to push it down, and I would get angry, why am I like this? And then over time I realized like, okay, man, like just notice those thoughts too, but just relax into it. Just like we do with the shoulders, we're not tensing the whole body, we're just holding the shoulders, and it's intense, but you can observe and relax into the intensity,
Yeah.
So that's another key to this, is that like life might be intense, not as intense as, let's say, as it feels to you in certain, say, social situations. But part of this work is you want to be able to feel all the intensity, but not be stopped by it, not be affected by it. So like with art, you want your frustration tolerance to be high.
Yes,
so you can just be making a million mistakes and be like, fuck, it didn't go the way I wanted. And then you just keep going.
Yeah, it stops me from doing a lot of things, that frustration. Like, I think I tried to learn guitar when I was 16. I tried to learn martial arts. I just stopped within like a couple months just because I'm so hard on myself, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, to
It
me,
should
this
be
is
good.
all exciting, man. This is
Yeah.
exciting because, and I've got some experience in each of those realms, so we can really see, and we'll be able to test, each week and see where you're getting with things. So I think that's great. And try out, for now, try out that silent presence thing, whatever you want to call it. When you wake up in the morning, before you go to bed at night, and then during the day, just take a moment. If you get lost or something, take a moment and just bring your mind back to where the body is. Just
All right.
don't make it into a big issue or anything. Just kind of notice, oh wait, I was drifting off during this phone conversation, and then come back, and now you'll be present again. So that's kind of the simple approach to this, and it should get easier and easier, especially
Right.
with the body exercises. Well, I wanted to ask one more thing. Did you notice a difference between when we did before the exercises and after the first one with the?
Yeah, I think, actually the second time we did the silent meditation or whatever it's called, I felt a lot more aware of the thoughts. Like the first time I wasn't really aware. The second time I was aware of everything that was happening. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Any other questions or anything before we go?
No, I think we've covered everything.
Okay, this is really awesome. I'm glad you came on, and we'll have you on again in the future. You're welcome to jump on anytime
Sure.
to see
Thank
me
you.
streaming, and yeah, maybe you'll have a career on YouTube. Who knows down the road?
Yeah, maybe.
Selling your art and all kinds of stuff. You never know, man. I mean, now you've gone live. I don't know if you've done that before, but
No.
it's kind of no big deal,
Right.
I mean, it is a big deal. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm saying like there's no threat. So now you have that experience.
Yeah.
So now in the future, if you were to go do it, I think it'll be easier each time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you for having me on.
Cool. Yeah, it's nice to just to get to hang out and talk about these things and go deep with it, which is I think pretty rare in the way things are now. So it's nice to have a nice long stream, chill out, hang out with Jonah. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I'll be seeing you tomorrow for the session, if the Lord is willing and the internet still exists.
Right.
I think it will be. So yeah, we'll go into some of this stuff then. Have a good time, and until then, yeah, just enjoy.
All
And if you feel inspired, go grab your pencil and paper and see if you remember what kind of stuff you left off working on, when you were a kid.
Yeah, I'll try that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, this is good.
Cool, man. Thanks again. I really appreciate you jumping on.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. All
No
right.
problem, man. Good to see you. All right, we'll talk to you
All
soon.
right. Take care.
Enjoy.